To keep yourself updated, subscribe to Indigo Learn and click the bell icon and download our app OneFin to start learning on the go.
Hello everyone. Today we begin with standard Essay 210, Agreeing the Terms of Audit Engagement. I repeat, the name of the standard is Agreeing the Terms of Audit Engagement. So in this standard, we are going to understand everything about an engagement letter. But you might wonder, what exactly is the meaning of the term engagement letter? So imagine there is a prospective client and here is me, the auditor. Okay? So now what happens is, this prospective client, that is the client who wants the accounts to get audited, he comes to the auditor and he tells the auditor, please conduct audit for us. The auditor says, yes, I'll do the audit for you. And that is what the discussion that they have. And this auditor goes for the purpose of conducting the audit. He completes the audit entirely and submits the audit report to the client. On submitting the audit report to the client is shocked, because when he looked at the audit report, he saw it is an internal audit report, and what he expected from the auditor was a statutory audit report, because he had appointed me for the purpose of conducting a statutory audit, that is an audit to give an opinion on the financial statement. But what did I do? I conducted an audit on the internal affairs, on the internal controls of the organization, and I submitted a report which is the internal audit report. This made the client very angry, and this client applied or filed a case against me for gross negligence, for professional misconduct, and then this auditor comes under big trouble. For this rescue, we have the standard Essay 210, which helps the auditor to understand or bring a common understanding between him and the client, so that the audit can be done without any doubt, without any misunderstanding, or without any miscommunication between the client and the auditor. So this standard, if you repeat the heading again, it is agreeing the terms of audit engagement. We know the meaning of the word engagement, that is, when we take up an audit, okay, this engagement or this assignment, we term it as engagement. Now in this standard, what we are going to study is basically the preconditions that are required for the auditor to check before he starts the audit. Second, we are going to discuss about the responsibility of the management. And third, we talk about what is auditor's responsibility with respect to the engagement letter. So I repeat again, in this standard, what we highlight is, first we understand what is the scope of the audit. I mean, what is the scope of the standard, which talks about first precondition for conducting the audit or accepting the engagement. Second, we talk about responsibility of the management. And third, we'll talk about the responsibility of the auditor. The objective of this standard is that the auditor should accept and continue the engagement only if the preconditions of the audit are present and there is a common understanding between the client and the auditor. So I have spoken about two things here. One is that preconditions must be present. Second, that there must be a common understanding between the client and the auditor with respect to all the terms of engagement. So here the word precondition, what does it mean? Very simply, we are trying to understand that these are the conditions which have to be present before you take up the audit. If these conditions are not present, the auditor will not accept the engagement. That means when the appointment letter reaches the auditor will deny accepting the engagement. That means he will not take up the audit of the client. Now, what are these preconditions? We need to first understand them in detail. So now let us understand what you mean by preconditions for the audit. Now, preconditions are those conditions which have to be present before the auditor decides to accept the engagement. In simple language, if these conditions are not present, the auditor will not accept the engagement. That means he will straight away say that I will not do the audit of your organization. That is called as precondition. Now let us understand one by one which are the preconditions which are required to be present while the auditor has to perform his audit. So the first precondition that we talk about is that the financial statements should be prepared by the management using the applicable financial reporting framework. Now what do you mean by this? We know financial reporting framework is the framework for the preparation of financial statement of the organization. Like for example, if you take a company. Now for a company, the applicable financial reporting framework is given in the Act, that is the Companies Act 2013 under the Schedule 3. Now imagine if you are going to do the audit of a company and the company's accounts or the company's financial statements are not prepared as per the Schedule 3. Don't you think you will not accept the engagement? And the logic is quite simple to understand. If they have not used the proper framework to prepare the financial statement, obviously, how much ever you try, will you ever be able to give a true and fair view? Absolutely not. That means, at the end, you will end up giving what? A not true and fair view. Thus, we say that the first condition to be present is that the auditor should check that the management has prepared the financial statements as per the applicable financial reporting framework. To give you one more example here, like you must be doing in accounts, the banking company accounts, okay, or the banking financial statements, where we know very well that in the Banking Regulation Act, a proper format has been defined for the P&L, the balance sheet. Now, if you are a banking company or we are going to do the audit of a bank, and if this bank is not preparing financial statement as per that framework, then do you think however good you try, however hard you try, will you ever be able to give a true and fair view for this? Absolutely not. Because even if we conduct the audit, we are going to end up giving a not true and fair view. Because when the financial reporting framework itself is wrong, obviously the entire audit makes no sense absolutely. Therefore, the first precondition that we discuss is about whether management has prepared the financial statement as per the applicable financial reporting framework. So that is the first precondition. Second condition talks about that the management has to acknowledge and understand, their responsibility. That means the management says, I know and I understand properly what have to be done as per my responsibility. Here we talk about two responsibility which the management has to take upon themselves. First, that they have prepared the financial statements as per the financial reporting framework. That you understood now properly, because the responsibility of the management is to prepare the financial statements. We are going to do the audit, but preparation is their job. Second, they have designed proper internal controls for the purpose of preventing the financial statements from the risk of material misstatement. That means internal controls to be designed which are required to be present should be designed properly by the management so that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. That means your controls have to be like that. You design the controls like that, that when your accounts have been prepared, when financial statements have been prepared, they are not having any kind of risk or a very minimal risk to material misstatement. So these two are the responsibilities which the management has to acknowledge and also understand. So the first precondition we studied about is to check whether financial statement is as per the applicable financial reporting framework. Second, we tell the management, look management, you have to acknowledge and you have to understand what is your responsibility. And third, we tell that we require something more which you have to give us. What is that something more? If we ask you for any books, any record, any document, you have to make it available to us. If we do the audit, during the course of audit, if I require any extra information, if we require any extra information, you should make it available for us. And if we want to talk to any person within the organization, we should be given unrestricted access. So what are we saying? That look, we are coming to do the audit. Regarding any matter, if we want to check the supporting documentation, if we want to check the supporting records, if we want to check invoices, If you want to check loan agreements, whatever records, documents that we want to check, you have to make it available for us. Second, while performing the audit, if suppose we require some more additional information, that time you have to make it available for us. And if we want to inquire, if we want to speak to any person within the organization during the course of our audit, you should not stop us. That means we should get unrestricted access to any person within the organization that we can go and interact with. If you do all this and you are ready for all this, we will do your audit. Otherwise, we straight away deny of not conducting the audit for you. Okay? That means we have basically 3 conditions. The first condition says about the applicable financial reporting framework. Second talks about management accepting and acknowledging. That means acknowledging and understanding their responsibilities. And third we talk about is that you give us every information that we require for the purpose of conducting our audit. Now let us understand what you mean by the term limiting the scope of work prior to doing the audit. This standard talks about a situation where the client, that is the management, is limiting your scope for performing the audit. Now just have an imagination in your mind that you are sitting with the client across the table. So you imagine an office room where you are seated in the auditor's place and you have a client sitting across you. While you are discussing the terms and conditions of the audit amongst each other, that time the client is trying to tell you that look, we will provide you all the information that you require. We will give you all the documentation, we will give you all the records. We will give you unrestricted access to any person in the organization. All of these things they are agreeing. But they are telling you that we have a plant maybe in Hyderabad and we will not allow you the access, or we don't give you the access to that particular plant. Now tell me here, when everything else has been provided to you, but they are stopping you from going somewhere. That means they are not giving you an access to a particular factory of theirs. Do you think this will give a doubt in your mind? You will start having a suspicion in your mind. And with this kind of attitude, do you think you will take up the audit? So here what happens is, when the auditor realizes that the client is trying to limit his scope, because of which he could end up giving a disclaimer of opinion, or because of which he will give a disclaimer of opinion. What is disclaimer of opinion? No opinion absolutely. Why? Because we are not able to gather sufficient appropriate audit evidences. Now, when that person is not allowing us, or when the client is not allowing me to visit the particular plant, then how will I obtain evidences from the plant? Or how will I check what is happening in the plant? So in that case, in any manner, I will not be able to give a true and fair view. So I will end up giving a disclaimer of opinion. In that case, disclaimer of opinion is as good as no opinion absolutely. In that case, I will not accept the engagement. So when the client is trying to limit your scope, or when he does not allow you to do your work perfectly, effectively, or where the auditor feels that his objective cannot be achieved, in that case what will happen? The auditor says, I will not do your audit. He is clearly tell the client, look client, this is what you are doing and we will not do the audit. Because when we do the audit, we want access to every information that we require for the purpose of conducting our audit. Okay. Now here, this when we say limiting the scope, you could take up one more example to understand it better. Suppose when you're discussing across the counter, or maybe you're sitting across the chair and you're talking to each other. So the client says, look, we will give you access to all the records, all the documents, loan agreements, everything will give you. But we have an internal audit report, or there may be the internal audit report we will not submit you. Or you would not have an access to the internal audit report which is done by the internal auditor. Now in that case, tell me, when they are not giving you an access to one of the content or one of the documentation, don't you think it is a limiting on your scope? Very much yes. And therefore in these situations where you feel the client is stopping you, or the client is restricting you, or not giving you the entire information, and this is limiting your scope, in that case you realize that because of this I will end up giving a disclaimer of opinion, which is no opinion absolutely. And in that case, please do not accept the engagement. That means the auditor will deny and he will not accept the audit engagement. Therefore, in this standard, what we basically understand is, the first thing is, If the preconditions are not present and if the management does not accept and agree to their responsibilities, then the auditor will not accept the engagement, except if it is required by law or regulation to accept it. Now, what do you mean by this? The meaning of this is, we studied by far, if preconditions are not present, if management does not take up the responsibility, we will not accept the engagement. But then now we say, unless it is required by law or regulation. Simple understanding of this is that, suppose if you have been appointed by the government for conducting an audit for some kind of investigation, for some special purpose you have been appointed by the government, and in this case, tell me, even if preconditions are not present, will you not do the audit? You have to conduct the audit. Therefore, when you have been appointed by the government or maybe law or regulation requires you to conduct an audit in a specific area, then in that case, you will not give the priority to the precondition or the management's responsibilities. In those cases, you will conduct the audit even if the preconditions are not present. Therefore, the sentence used in this particular standard is that, if the preconditions are not present and if the management does not agree to their responsibility, the auditor shall not accept the engagement unless it is required by law or regulation for him to accept the engagement. Law or regulation, the classic example for you to hold is, when the government will appoint you to conduct the audit for some investigation purposes, in that case, we are not going to look for precondition. Even if precondition is not present, we are obliged, we are under the obligation that we have to perform the audit. So in that case, we don't give regard to preconditions when law or regulation is asking us to conduct an audit. Moving on to the main heading, if you look at, agreeing to the terms of engagement. Now, terms of engagement is something that we can understand very commonly. These are the terms and conditions that the management and the auditor will sit across and discuss and decide upon. It is like a contract where both the parties have to sit across, come to a common understanding, and once when both of them agree, there will be a contract which is executed, and this we call it to be an engagement letter. Now, agreeing the terms of engagement. With whom does the auditor agree? The auditor will agree with the management and those charged with governance. Those charged with governance or the management, depending upon who is there in the organization, based upon that, we are going to discuss and agree with the terms of engagement. So if you can imagine, it is again the same room where you are discussing. You have on the other side of the table 2 or 3 board of directors sitting across. On the other side, you have the auditor. They are discussing, and these discussions will happen with the DCWG. And if everything is discussed upon properly, agreed with both of them correctly, then we come up with the audit engagement letter. Now, audit engagement letter is given by the auditor to the client. This is a very important thing to be understood. The engagement letter is given by the auditor to the client. What client gives the auditor is appointment letter. What the management, what the client, TCWG gives the auditor, we call it to be an appointment letter. So, appointment letter goes from the management to the auditor. And then, what the auditor does is prepares a engagement letter. We are studying standards, and standards are all the responsibility of the auditor. So, here, this responsibility is on whom? The auditor. So, the drafting of engagement letter, writing the content of engagement letter, all of this is the responsibility of the auditor. So, the engagement letter will be given by the auditor to the client. Therefore, what the auditor is going to give the client, we call this letter to be audit engagement letter. Because this is a standard, and standards are all a responsibility given to the auditor. So, very simply understand, what the management gives the auditor is the appointment letter. And what the auditor will give the client, we call it to be an engagement letter. Now, in this engagement letter, as per the standard, what all has to be included or what all has to be agreed upon? So, first of all, this engagement letter has to be agreed between whom? The auditor and the management and TCWG if there is. Okay. So what happens is, this is an agreement that is happening between them. Now, this standard tells us what should be the content of the engagement letter. So it says, the engagement letter shall include the following. So what are they saying? The engagement letter shall include the following. So they have given you 5 inclusions in the engagement letter. Because it is an inclusive definition, because it is something that you can include, so it is not hard and fast that only these 5 things will be there. No. Along with this 5, all the other things that you want to write or you want to agree with the management also can be included in the engagement letter. So let us understand first what the standard is precisely giving you to be a part of engagement letter. After we understand that, I will give you a few more examples of what could be the additional things that you can bring as a part of engagement letter. So let us understand one by one. First thing will be the scope and objective of the auditor. That means the scope and objective of the audit. What is the scope? That we are going to do the audit of financial statement. What is the objective? To give an opinion on the financial statement. So the first thing that we write in the engagement letter is about the scope and objective of the audit. The second thing that we write here is about the responsibility of the management. Now here, the management, we have already studied about the precondition that they have to acknowledge and understand. So in this engagement letter also, you have to mention the responsibility of the management. And we know the responsibility of the management: preparation of financial statement, designing the internal control system, providing unrestricted access to the auditor. All of these are the responsibility of the management. Third we talk about is the responsibility of the auditor. The third is what? Responsibility of the auditor. That means what will the auditor do for the purpose of doing his audit? That means obtaining evidences, performing audit procedures to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidences. Then comes to the fourth one, and there is the fifth point. Now what I would do is, though these 5 points in your material that you have are given as 5 separate points, but I will club it as a part of second and third. Reason is very simple. It will help you remember and you also understand they are actually connected. If you study like this, it will help you and you'll understand the connect that is there between the second and the fourth point. Okay, now if you recollect, I told the first point to be what? Scope and objective of the audit. Second I told is responsibility of the management. Now tell me, one of the major responsibilities of the management is to identify the proper or applicable financial reporting framework for the purpose of preparation of financial statement. Now, this identification of appropriate or applicable financial reporting framework for the purpose of preparing the financial statement is the responsibility of whom? The management. So therefore, in the content when you see, the first is scope and objective, second is responsibility of the management, the third is responsibility of the auditor, and the fourth one is identification of the applicable financial reporting framework for the preparation of financial statement. Now this, if you can connect properly, it is one of the responsibility of the management. So this you could bring as a part of responsibility of management. But then we will take it as a point number 4 when it comes to your audit engagement letter content. Okay, then. Fifth has something to do with point number 3. Now what is point number 3? Point number 3 is responsibility of the auditor. Then what does the point number 5 say? It has something to do with the responsibility of the auditor. And what is that something? It simply says that the auditor has to give the reference to the form and content of the audit report that he is going to issue. That means whatever report he is going to issue or whatever is going to be the content of his report, that form and content he has to refer it to. And also give the circumstances where there could be change in the report. Change in the report as in, if suppose you end up giving a modified opinion, not true and fair view. In that case, obviously, you are not going to give a true and fair view. You will give a modified opinion. So you are going to give a reference to any kind of other report that you could issue if the circumstances so tell you. Are you understanding? So what happens here is the third that we are talking about is responsibility of the auditor. And what is the responsibility of the auditor? Obviously to conduct the audit, examine the financial statement, obtain evidences, etc. But one more is to give a reference to the form and content of the report that he is going to issue. Because ultimately why we do the audit? Because audit report has to be generated. So now if you cumulatively study all the points together, how many points I covered? 5. Where I told you 3 is the main one, 4th and 5th you could give it like a branch to the 2nd and 3rd. Okay? So now understand properly. First one we tell is what? Scope and objective of the audit. Second we talk about responsibility of the management. Third we talk about responsibility of the auditor. Fourth we talk about identification of applicable financial reporting framework, which I told you that you can actually club it with the second one because it is responsibility of the management. Fifth talks about reference to the form and content of the audit report to be issued and the circumstances where the audit report could be changed. Now this audit report is the duty of whom? The auditor. Therefore, you can club this with the third branch, that is responsibility of the auditor. So according to me, it's only what? 3. First one is scope and objective. Second, responsibility of the management. Third is the responsibility of the auditor, along with the 4th and 5th pointers, which are just a subdivision of 2nd and 3rd. Is the concept clear, everybody? Okay. So with this we understand what is the standard telling you to include as a part of engagement letter. But this is an inclusive definition. So we cannot say it is exhaustive. It is not going to be the end. If the auditor feels he wants to write some more pointers or he wants the management to agree upon some more things in the engagement letter, he can do that. Like for example, he could mention about the procedure, like he would follow audit sampling for the purpose of conducting his audit. He could quote his fees, he will quote his fees. So this has to be agreed by the management. So likewise, other than these 5, there could be some additional things also which the auditor could include as a part of audit engagement letter. So basically, if you understand in a nutshell, the management will give the auditor appointment letter. The auditor will give the management audit engagement letter. This audit engagement letter is governed by SA 210, which entrusts a responsibility on the auditor to give what? Engagement letter. Now this engagement letter has to be agreed with the management and TCWG. What is the agreement that you do? That we have 5 things, all the 5 things have to be included. Because it is inclusive, you can add on some more points. Further, this standard talks about recurring audits. If you realize or if you understand, when I started, I told the objective of the standard is that the auditor shall accept or continue the engagement if preconditions are present. So the 2 words that we used there or highlighted there was accept or continue. Now accept is when you first time go and do the audit. That means for the first year, it is the first year where the client has approached you and you are going to do the audit for that client. So that is the first year. So you decide to accept the engagement or not to accept the engagement. But then we said accept or continue. Now suppose the client is the same. You are the auditor. You already finished the first year of audit, report is submitted and everything is done. Now the next year also, you only are being appointed as the auditor. So now you have to decide whether you want to continue the engagement or not. So this what is happening, we call it to be recurring audit. So what is recurring audit? Very simple. When the client remains the same and the auditor continues to do the audit of that same client for the next year also, we call this concept to be recurring audit. That means maybe for continuous period of 2, 3, 4 years, we are only the auditors and that is only the client. So this is what we call as recurring audit. Now why are we talking about recurring audit in this standard? Because this standard is telling you that is it required that every time you do the audit again, are you required to draft a new engagement letter? So if you think what according to you would be, do you require a new engagement letter each year or you do not require and you can continue the original or the old engagement letter and do the audit for the current year. So according to you, what do you think? Now, you all must have got some answers at your end, but let me give you an understanding for this. Recurring audit, that means where you are going to do the audit of the same client for the next year or the year onwards. In that case, basically a new engagement letter will not be required. That means you can continue the audit with the original engagement letter that you drafted the last year. That engagement letter would continue and we can continue the audit for the current year. So every year having a new engagement letter or revising the engagement letter will not be required. But obviously this standard also tells you there are circumstances or there are times where the engagement letter needs to be revised. That means in case of recurring audit, when you are going to continue the audit engagement, then in that case where there is a need for you to change the terms in engagement or revise the engagement letter. To give you a few examples, and this is very important for the examination because the institute has questioned this many a times. So they have asked you a question like this: what are the circumstances where the auditor is required to change the engagement terms or to change the engagement letter in case of recurring audit? Now, first one, to give you an example, if suppose there is a change in the senior management of the organization. Now we know that we agree the engagement letter with whom? The management or TCWG. Now previous year TCWG set was completely different. Maybe the BODs that we had interaction with, they were different. This year they are changed. So now tell me, when the senior management itself changed, that means previous year who have agreed to your terms, are they there today or they are changed? They are changed. So don't you think in this case you would like to revise the engagement and redraft a new engagement letter and let this engagement letter be accepted by the new ones, that is the new TCWG? Yes. So that is one of the scenario where you would require to draft a new engagement letter. Or there could be change in ownership. So there has been a change in the ownership structure, because of which there is a change required for the engagement terms and conditions. Or to give you one more, there could be maybe you want to change your fee structure. Maybe the nature and the size of the business has been grown very high. Maybe it has grown very, very high. In that case, you realize that you will not work with the original fees. So now you want to change the fee structure. So when you want to bring a change in the terms and conditions, obviously you will come up with what? New engagement letter. To give you one more example, we could say that suppose if regulatory requirements are there, or even better, if suppose last year in your engagement letter you had written a condition or a term was written by you which was misunderstood by the management. Some kind of language problem, and because of which there was a miscommunication or misunderstanding between you and the client. In that case, this year what you do? Will you continue the same misunderstanding letter or will you now redraft and rectify the engagement? You will rectify. Therefore, these are some of the situations where you would require, in case of a recurring audit, to redraft or revise the engagement terms and conditions. And obviously, when you revise, you have that also to be agreed with management and TCWG. So this particular topic of recurring audit simply says that when you continue to do the audit of the same client for the next year also, we term it to be recurring audit. Basically, new engagement letter will not be required every year when you are continuing the audit. However, there could be circumstances where you would require a change in the engagement letter. Circumstances, as I explained you few of them, it could be change in the ownership, it could be change in senior management, it could be maybe change in regulatory requirements, maybe the financial reporting framework has changed, that also could be a reason. Okay, so like that, or maybe you want to change the fee structures. So what happens? Terms and conditions you want to change, or there was a misunderstanding between you and the management in the previous engagement. So obviously there makes no point for you to continue with the same one now. So in that case, we will require to redraft an engagement letter and this engagement letter now has again to be accepted by the management and TCWG. So this is the concept of recurring audit. Now the next part of the standard is agreeing to the acceptance on the change in terms of engagement. That means acceptances to the change in the terms of engagement. Now what do you mean by this? The meaning of this is, we have now started the audit. And how did we start the audit? By me and management agreeing on the same thing, and we have now ready with all the terms and conditions of the engagement, and we have started the audit. Now while we are conducting the audit, the management comes to us and says, look, there has to be brought a certain changes in the terms of engagement. That means what we agreed the previous time when we were sitting across and discussing the terms of engagement, all that we had agreed upon, we need to bring certain changes. Now what do you mean by this? The meaning of this is, what happens is, we have already started doing the audit, and now the management is coming to us and requesting us to change the terms of engagement. If this would have happened before acceptance, then we would have not accepted the audit. That means if they would have, tried to limit the scope or something, then at that very point we would have said, we will not accept the engagement, we will not do the audit. But this is not the case now. Now the thing is different. What is happening is, that time they said, everything is fine, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll provide you all the information, everything is told by them, accepted by them, agreed by them. Now it comes to a situation where, looking at all of that, we started doing our audit. Now the management is coming to us and saying, look, you need to change certain terms of engagement. Now what auditor will do? Auditor will straight away not deny about the changes in the terms. He will first ask the management, what is the change that you require? And he will question himself, is there a reasonable justification for acceptance of such change? Like for example, suppose if there is some kind of misunderstanding between the nature of service that they wanted from us and what we have assumed. Like they wanted us to conduct statutory audit, we thought it to be a tax audit. Okay, so here there is some kind of reasonable justification that we can think about, that yes, they are requesting us to change it. Now if such kind of change happens, we are okay with it, we could bring the change in the terms of engagement. But if suppose the auditor realizes that the management is asking us to change something which is going to bring our assurance to a lower level. Now we all know we have to give a reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. And this reasonable assurance has to be high level of assurance. Now what is happening? The auditor is feeling, or the auditor thinks, that what the management is asking us to do is going to bring our level of assurance lower. That means it is going to bring low level of assurance to the work that we are conducting. In that case, think practically, will you accept the changes that the management is asking you? Absolutely not. In that case, what we will think is, we will not do it or we will not accept the change. Now what happens is, when you are telling that you will not accept the change and the management says that we are not allowing you to continue with the old engagement letter. Now in that case there comes a problem, because you agreed to the old engagement. Now the management says that we are not allowing you to continue with that. If you bring these changes, we will allow you to continue. Now what changes could be unreasonable for us? If they are restricting our scope, if they are not giving access to certain documentations. For example, suppose we are asking them for list of trade receivables and now they are denying and asking us to change the terms of engagement. Now these are something which are going to bring some kind of doubt in our minds. Doubt as in, obviously we know management has an idea that there is something wrong there. So somewhere or the other, they are very clear that something is wrong or misstated in the debtors balances. In that case, that is the reason they are asking us not to check that. Okay. So these are the terms where we believe it is unreasonable for us to accept. Now in that case, what we will do is, if it is unreasonable and we feel it is not justified to change the terms of engagement, and the management is telling, we are not permitting you to continue with the original engagement. Now the auditor says, look, I will not continue with the client. So what he says, you are not listening to me, so absolutely okay, I will withdraw the engagement. So first thing he will see is, look into for disclaimer of opinion. He will then communicate to the if that is not possible, obviously, he will go to the management, communicate with them. If they are also having the same opinion for us to limit or for us to bring the changes, then we simply say we give up on the client. That means we are going to withdraw from the terms of engagement. But that alone will not be enough. You as the auditor have certain responsibilities. So what you will do is, when you will be thinking of withdrawing an engagement, you can withdraw, absolutely no problem, discretion is yours. Because the situations are like that, you could withdraw from the engagement. But it is your duty to check whether do you have any other reporting requirements. What do you mean by reporting requirements? This condition or this kind of reporting have you to do to some regulators, have you to do to the owners, have you to do to the TCWG. Is some kind of reporting requirement there on you? Does law put a responsibility over you that if a situation like this comes, is reporting required to them? In that case, you withdraw, we have no problem, but then along with that, you also take care of your responsibility. So you will withdraw and do all the reporting that is required to the respective authorities which the law is telling you. So in that case, very simple understanding is, you will see what is the change which the management is asking you, but not before, it is after accepting the engagement. So now what happens is, you will see what are the changes. If you feel the changes are justified, then we are okay, we'll accept the change and we could continue. But one very important point is, if you are ready to accept the change, you cannot modify the existing engagement letter. You will have to redraft a new engagement letter, wherein all the terms and conditions will be brought to a separate paper altogether. So we need to understand here that acceptance of a change in terms of engagement, the auditor will first check if there is a reasonable justification for the auditor to make the changes. If he agrees, then changes can be made and he can continue the engagement. But then these engagements, whatever changes that you are bringing up, should not be brought in the original engagement letter by some kind of alteration or modification. What has to be done is, it has to be redrafted and a fresh new engagement letter has to be generated. And this new engagement letter, which is drafted again, has to be accepted by both the client and the auditor. So when there are changes, these changes have to come over a different piece of paper altogether, and then this has to be accepted by the client and the auditor as an agreement for the new terms and engagement. But suppose if the auditor believes that there is no reasonable justification for him to accept the changes, then he will look into for if there is a need to give disclaimer of opinion. And if that is not possible or if that is not required, he would then think about withdrawing the engagement. And then we know very well, if you withdraw the engagement, you will first communicate with the management and TCWG. But if they are also of the same opinion that you have to change the terms of engagement and you are not allowed to continue with the original engagement terms, then in that case, what will you do is, you will withdraw the engagement. And when you withdraw the engagement, you also have to take care of the other responsibilities that you have. So the other responsibilities are, you need to check whether there is any reporting responsibility that is entrusted on you for the purpose of reporting this matter to, maybe it could be the members of the company or the members of the organization, to the regulators, that is any act governing you. If any of that kind of reporting is required, then the auditor has to fulfill that requirement as well. There is one more very important point covered by this standard. This is connected to the terms of engagement contents. That means in the engagement letter, what contents we are going to have, it is connected to that. Now we have already covered in detail what will be the content of the engagement letter. Quite simple to understand now. We have said it 5 important contents which are to be prescribed by SA 210, and the others you can add on. Like I told you, you could talk about how the fees would be computed, how would be the formation of the audit engagement team, then the expectation that the management would provide a written representation as and when required, etc., etc. So you could add on few more things that you would like or you require in the terms of engagement. So that is something that we studied about the contents of the engagement letter. Now in the standard, they have given you something which talks about if the law and regulation prescribes sufficient details of the terms of engagement, which are referred, like all the points, 5 pointers plus the additional which I told. If a particular law or regulation is giving you some detail about the audit engagement terms and conditions, then in that case, the auditor is not required to again bring the terms of engagement in a written format. Now, what do you mean by this? Looks complicated but very simple. What is this is? Suppose we are doing the audit of a bank, and suppose the law governing the bank, that is the Banking Regulation Act, in the act itself, they have given all the sufficient details about the engagement letter contents. That means they have told properly the audit engagement letter shall contain all of these things. It is given where? In the law itself. Now in this case, when already the law governing the particular client is giving sufficient detail about what kind of contents have to be there in the engagement and what is management's responsibility, everything, then in that case, why is the auditor going to again redraft and make one more engagement letter and give for acceptance to the client? So what the auditor will do is, he will not write all the terms and conditions as required regularly in such cases. But then he will do only one thing. He will record a statement telling that the management will acknowledge and understand their responsibility with respect to whatever is given in the terms of engagement. Okay? So if auditor does only that, it will be considered to be a valid engagement letter. In very simple language, if the law which is governing the client, in that law, if suppose they have given a proper prescription or a proper detailing of how the engagement letter will be and what is the content of the engagement letter, in that case, the auditor will again not redraft and bring in all the details again. What he will do is, he will not come with a new fresh agreement altogether. He will not record again the same statements which are there in the regulation. So what will he do? He will simply refer to these regulations and require the management that, look management, in the regulation they have given you terms of engagement. You have to give an acknowledgement that you accept and you understand them. If that is what the auditor records, and this single statement if the auditor records, it is as good as a valid engagement letter. So that is when a law or regulation prescribes the sufficient details, then auditor need not draft the entire engagement letter, a reference would be enough. So we have now completed Essay 210, and basically with all the explanation and the understanding that you have got, we are now in a position to solve the questions. So what we will do, for only increasing your confidence and to get an understanding that you have understood this particular standard, to build that confidence, it is very important. And because of that, now what we will do is, we will take up some past examination questions which have appeared in our ICI examinations or maybe the RTP or MTP, and this will give you a confidence that what we have studied is something that could be questioned, and you will be in a position to understand the question, interpret the question, and finally write the answer perfectly. Okay? So these questions will ultimately give you a sense of confidence that what we have done will be sufficient. Okay? So now let us get with the first question for discussion. So let us take the question 1, which comes from November 2019 RTP. Okay, I will first read the question to you, and where it is important, probably you will understand by reading the question itself on what concept are we highlighting it. So let us understand. Mr. Ram Kapoor, Chartered Accountant, has been appointed as a statutory auditor by XYZ Private Limited for the audit of their financial statements for the year 2018-19. The company has mentioned in the audit terms that they will not be able to provide internal audit reports to Mr. Ram during the course of audit. Further, the company also imposed some limitations on the scope of Mr. Ram. Now, most of you who must have read this question carefully along with me have got a very clear understanding what we are focusing on. So this is something that we discussed in detail, and this is with respect to what? Limitation on the scope of audit, right? But now let us see what is the question asking you. It says, what are the preconditions Mr. Ram should ensure before accepting or refusing the proposal. Also advise whether Mr. Ram should accept the proposed audit engagement. So we basically have been asked two questions here. One is with respect to preconditions, and then whether Ram should accept this engagement or refuse to accept the engagement. So now if you properly try to analyze this question, here there is Mr. Ram, who is the chartered accountant, and there is a company XYZ Private Limited who is appointing Mr. Ram. It is a proposed appointment of him being the statutory auditor for your company. Now, what happened is, during the course of discussing their terms of engagement, this company, that is the client, proposed client of Mr. Ram, is telling that look, we will agree to everything, but we will not be able to provide you internal audit reports. Most importantly, they are also limiting scope of the work of Mr. Ram. What is scope? That means the access, or maybe some kind of documentation access is not given to you, or maybe what you are required to do for the financial statement audit, they are limiting that. Now, first of all, let us understand the first part of the question. What are preconditions? We have already discussed in detail, and we know preconditions are those conditions which, if are not present, the auditor will refuse to take up the engagement. So these preconditions we have studied and understood that we study three preconditions. Which are the three preconditions? First, that there must be, the management has to prepare the financial statements as per the applicable financial reporting framework. If that is not there, we won't take the audit. Second, management should understand and acknowledge their responsibility with respect to preparation of financial statements and designing of the internal control system. And third, management should agree that they will provide us with all the unrestricted restricted access to all the persons within the entity, give us all the access to documentation, records, any papers that we are asking for, and any additional information that we require, that also the auditor should be provided with. So if all these conditions are present, we as the auditors will accept the engagement. So Mr. Ram will check whether these three conditions are present. If the three conditions are present, he will accept the engagement. And if the three conditions are not present, he will obviously refuse the proposal. So that is the first part of the question. Look at the next one. Also advise whether Mr. Ram should accept the proposed audit engagement. Now this is highlighting the concept of limiting the scope of audit. Now we have studied already as a part of SA 210 that when there is a limitation on the scope of audit and the auditor feels that this is going to help or this is going to make him give disclaimer of opinion, in that case it is recommended or it is required for the auditor not to accept the engagement. Be very careful when you use the language. If you write withdrawal will happen when you accept an engagement. Here is a situation where acceptance is still not happened. You are yet to accept the engagement. Therefore, the language that we require you to write is that you will write that we are going to deny or we are going to refuse to accept the engagement. So that is the answer to this question. That is, first you give the preconditions, all the three, and second you will talk that because there is a limitation on the scope, the auditor will not accept the engagement. Let us take the next question. That is, this question is from November 2020, old syllabus, but this question is one of the institute's favorite question, and every time, every now and then institute has been checking on this. It is like one of the most favorite questions that you can talk about from SA 210. Okay, so let us read the question and then understand it. Okay, and I am very sure if you have understood the standard properly, when I read the question itself, you will get an idea about what are we talking about. Okay, so look at the question. T and Company, a firm of chartered accountants, has not revised the terms of engagement and obtained confirmation from the client for the last 5 years despite changes in business and professional environment. Please elucidate the circumstances that may warrant the revision in the terms of engagement. So here there is T and Company, a firm of chartered accountants, which has not revised the terms of engagement, and they have been the auditors of their client for a continuous period of now, it's been now 5 years that they have been the auditors, and they have kept on accepting the same engagement even if there are changes in the business and professional environment. Alright. Now this question is asking you about what are the areas or the circumstances where you would require to revise the terms of engagement. Now you understood we are talking about recurring audit. For all those who got it right, 100% correct, we talk about the concept of recurring audit. Now here we know that when the same auditor does the audit of the same client for the subsequent year also, that we call it to be a recurring audit. And we already understood, basically you don't have to redraft fresh engagement letter every year. The old engagement letter can continue. But now, here they are telling there are certain changes that have happened. So there could be a need for revision for terms of engagement. But this question is talking about you giving all the examples or all the circumstances where you could require a change in the terms of engagement. Now we have discussed about this in detail. So what are the discussions that we talk about? First, if there is a change in the ownership, if there is a change in the senior management, then if there is a change in the terms of engagement, special terms are added or removed. If there was some kind of misunderstanding that was there in the previous engagement to make the communication quite clear, if the financial reporting framework has undergone changes, if there are new regulatory requirements for us to bring up certain changes, or maybe if the nature and the size of business has undergone change. So all of these relevant pointers where we believe that the engagement letter has to undergo changes when there is going to be a recurring audit. Okay. So as per this question, you only have to give those 6 to 7 circumstances where you require to change the terms of engagement. Okay. So quite simple question, and you all are aware of recurring audit, and this is the place where one of the circumstances with respect to change in the business environment. So here you have to change the terms of engagement as well. Okay. So that is the question appearing from the old syllabus, and also very important for us to know that this is one of the examiner's favorite question. So very important for the examination point of view. Now let us take the third question, and with this your clarity will even be better. Okay. So we'll take up the question from the November 2020 RTP. Okay, and RTP questions we focused upon because tested examination questions. Okay, so there is a possibility of these kind of questions coming in your examination. So let us take up the question and understand it in detail. MEA Limited is a listed company having its operation across India. MEA Limited appointed Mr. X, Mr. Y and Mr. Z as its joint auditors for the year 2019 and 20. So what is happening is X, Y and Z are the joint auditors which are being appointed by MEA Limited. Okay. After making sure that all of them are qualified to be appointed as statutory auditors, MEA Limited issued engagement letter to all of them. Okay. So they have been appointed, so obviously engagement letter has to be there. But Mr. X was not clear on certain points, so he requested MEA Limited to slightly change the terms of engagement. This change will not impact the ultimate opinion on the financial statements. So is this justified changed? Very much yes. Because if something which is not going to affect your opinion, then that is reasonably accepted and this change can be taken on. Okay. The engagement letter contains the details of objective and scope of audit, responsibilities of the auditor, identification of framework applicable. It also contains the reference to the expected form and the content of the report from all the 3 joint auditors. In your opinion, what was the discrepancy in the audit engagement letter issued by MEA Limited? Okay. So this question is basically concentrating on the content of the terms of engagement. Now, if you look into here, there is a company which has given engagement letters to 3 auditors X, Y and Z, where X is having some kind of, some terms is not very clear with, which is asking for some change, but the change is quite reasonable because it is not going to affect the ultimate opinion on the financial statement. So reasonably an acceptable change. Now that is not the point of discussion here. The discussion is the terms of engagement. If you have a proper recapturing, then you know that we studied in SA 210 that the engagement letter shall include 5 most important things. These 5 things are important. Something more if you want to add, you can add based on the decisions between the auditor and the client agreements that are there. But the 5 things are very important. Now, which are the 5 things? We have repeated so many times, so I believe all of you must be knowing it by now. So the first one is, everybody try to recollect it. Okay, so the first one we talk about the scope and objective of the audit. Second, we'll talk about the responsibility of the management. Then we talk about the responsibility of the auditor. Then we do the identification of the applicable financial reporting framework. And finally, we talk about the reference to the form and context of the report to be issued by the auditor. So these 5 are compulsory. So this is what SA 210 tells. But now in the engagement letter which is given here, there are some things given. First of all, they are telling objective and the scope of audit, correct. Responsibility of the auditor is there, agreed. So if you see properly, what they have done is, they have given proper understanding of objective and the scope of audit, which we are okay with. Responsibility of the auditor is mentioned, that also we are okay with. They have properly identified the framework which is required, that also is agreed. They have also given a reference to the expected form and content of the report. Alright? So 4 things they have told. So what is missing? So is this audit engagement letter perfect? Is it not having any doubt, any discrepancy? Very much it has. And the discrepancy is one of the most essential part is missing. And the part which is missing is what? All of you must have got the answer. It is responsibility of the management. So this engagement letter lacks responsibility of the management. And one very important thing you have to understand here is, the engagement letter has to be drafted by the auditor and given to the management for agreeing to the terms of engagement. Moreover, here all the engagement terms and conditions are correct. We agree. But the one important thing which is told by SA 210 is missing. And because responsibility of management is missing, this engagement letter will not be valid as per SA 210. So now if you look at the question, in your opinion, what was the discrepancy in the audit engagement letter issued by MEA Limited? Discrepancy is what is the default. Discrepancy is what is the fault. Discrepancy is what is lacking in this engagement letter. So what basically is lacking? Are all the contents as required given? No. One of the most important condition is missing, which is responsibility of the management. And when responsibility of the management is missing, this is not a complete and a correct engagement letter. Alright, so that is the answer. According to our opinion, the discrepancy in the audit engagement letter is the absence of the responsibility of the management, which must be included as a part of the main content of the audit engagement letter. Alright, so we have done basically the 3 important questions. These 3 questions will give you an idea of what kind of questions we can expect from SA 210. This essay is considered to be one of the simple and an easy standard, and examination the questions will be quite simple if you know the content properly. Okay, so there is not going to be a lot of confusion, or there could not be a manipulative or confusing question coming from the standard. So any question coming from the standard would be manageable if you have understood the concept correctly. Alright, so with this we close essay 210, agreeing the terms of audit engagement.